down the street and maybe finding a place where he could bathe and change clothes, and then move on to once more cut Craddock's sign? Any doubt about accomplishing the latter never entered his mind. Luke was good at what he did, and that included being a keen-eyed tracker. He may have lost his man's trail briefly due to the rain, but he felt confident it would be just a matter of time before he was able to pick it up again. With that thought in mind, he made his decision. He would take some extra time for that hot meal and bath, perhaps ask a few more questions to those he encountered in the process. If no trace or remembrance of Craddock continued, it would be time to climb back in the saddle and ride on. Luke started toward the cafe that had been tempting him ever since he'd passed it earlier and caught a whiff of delicious aromas. Fortunately, it was on the same side as the keg and jug, so he didn't have to cross the muddy, sloppy street again. As he strode along, continuing to take in the sights and sounds of the peaceful little town that surrounded him, Luke received a considerable amount of appraisal in return. He was a tall, solidly built man in his early 40s, with rugged facial features built around a prominent nose and neatly trimmed mustache. No one would ever call him classically handsome, yet women tended to find him attractive while men took note for reasons of their own. He dressed habitually in black: boots, trousers, shirt, wide-brimmed hat. Around his waist he wore a brace of nickel-plated Remington revolvers pouched in holsters, set for the cross-draw, and a sheathed knife on his left hip, just behind the gun on that side. He generally earned more than a passing glance. As he approached the cafe, Luke again caught scent of the aromas that had first lured him. Only a couple of horses were tied at the hitch rail out front of the establishment, but it being close to the noon hour, Luke expected there would be a good-sized crowd inside. At least there should be, if the food was anywhere near as good as it smelled. It crossed Luke's mind that, given his rather bedraggled, mud-spattered condition, maybe he should opt for the bath and change of clothes first, before mingling with other diners. While he was pondering whether or not to clean up first, the choice was suddenly made for him. A rifle crack came from the opposite side of the street, and the accompanying wind rip of a bullet passed scarcely an inch in front of his nose. His reaction was swift, instinctive, as he jerked back a half-step and dropped into a low crouch. Even as the bullet that barely missed him was smashing against the side of the building he'd been passing, the Remington seemed to leap into his fists. Staying crouched, his eyes scanned across the street, looking for some sign of the shot's origin. Up and down the boardwalk in either direction, and on both sides, citizens who'd been going about their business were scrambling frantically to get inside one of the stores or otherwise find cover. In the wide-open double doors of a blacksmith shop catty-cornered across the suddenly abandoned strip of muddy wagon and horse tracks, Luke saw what he was looking for. In that doorway, braced against its frame on one side, stood a man with a rifle raised to his shoulder. A haze of bluish smoke from his first shot hung in the air just above the man's head, and as Luke's eyes locked on him, he triggered another round. The shot tore in low, gouging a furrow and throwing a spray of splinters from the boardwalk planks half a foot to Luke's left. Luke instantly responded by squeezing off a blast from each of his revolvers. The range was pushing the accuracy for a handgun, especially rounds fired without taking careful aim, but at the moment, Luke was only looking to neutralize the advantage of the man who'd opened up on him and buy himself a few seconds to get to shelter. He got what he wanted when the rifleman ducked back from the .44 caliber slugs the Remingtons had sent screaming through the blacksmith shop doorway. While the shooter was trying to reset and raise his rifle again, Luke sprang up out of his crouch, spun to one side, and lunged around the corner of the building he'd been caught in front of. A third shot chased him, but too late. It only managed to blow away a fist-sized chunk of wood an instant after Luke disappeared behind the building's edge. He found himself at the mouth of a narrow alley between two structures. The ground underfoot was wet and sloppy, sucking at his boots, and strings of pooled rainwater were still dribbling down from the building's eaves.